And good evening, welcome to I Am Piscataway. This is Wednesday, October 2nd, and we are on the air live. If you'd like to speak with me or my guests, please call us at any time during this hour-long program at 732-562-2305. Our guests tonight are Piscataway Township at-large Councilwoman Chanelle McCullum, Charles Casteja from the company Good Energy, Timothy Dacey, the Piscataway Township Business Administrator, and Gary Fogelman also from Good Energy. Chanelle McCullum is an at-large council member and has served 2 terms as council president. She has been employed by Merck for 23 years. Chanelle has a doctorate degree in pharmacy from Shenandoah University and a Bachelor of Science in Pharmacy from Howard University. She's a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Inc. She currently serves on the Municipal Alliance Committee, the Housing and Community Development Committee, and the Sterling Village Board of Trustees. And welcome back to the show, Chanelle.
Good evening, Mayor.
Charles Casteja is a managing partner of Director of Sales for Good Energy, a national energy consulting firm with offices in 4 states. He is a recognized expert in acquisition and ongoing management of large electricity and natural gas aggregations throughout U.S. deregulated markets. For his company, Good Energy, it's more than 200 communities aggregation programs representing over 1 million households. A large majority of these selected renewable energy as their default electric product. Charles and his team effectively manage energy procurement for approximately over 1% of the U.S. population. And welcome to the first time to the show, Charles.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Tim Dacey is the business administrator of Piscataway Township. He has a long history in local government that is including serving as the Bergen County Administrator, Englewood City Administrator, and Vice President of Bergen County Community College. He is a graduate of the Merchant Marine Academy and a Navy veteran. Welcome back to the show, Tim.
Thank you, Mayor.
And last but not least, Gary Fogelman is a manager of the mass markets for Good Energy. He has an in-depth knowledge of renewable energies and helps reduce their carbon footprints by using aggregation. Gary is a graduate of American University, and welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
And I'm not going to hold it against you that you're a graduate of American University. Right there. Chanelle's Howard University. So
George Washington.
George Washington. Oh, this is like homecoming for DC universities here.
That's right.
So I think the way with the guests come on, I received a lot of phone calls into the mayor's office. The staff did in regards to the mayor's message coordinating newsletter about the upcoming referendum, so to speak, on the ordinance about energy aggregation and renewable energies. And a lot of people are wondering what this is all about. They're also being lobbied by outside forces from out of Washington, D.C. and Trenton. For this referendum and things, and the particulars, the nuances that go on in it. There's probably maybe 3 dozen people in the entire state of New Jersey who know this very well, and we're fortunate enough that we have 2 gentlemen on the show tonight who actually know a little bit, and or I should say a lot about this energy aggregation and renewable energies. And so you're going to hear firsthand from them, and also our perspective on this, on what they're about to come in the general election to vote for. So I think what we'll start off, we do have probably about 20-minute worth of clips of events that happened throughout the month. So we're going to try to get into the meat and potatoes of this right away. And so basically, Gary, you probably should start off and talk about what is aggregation. Most people, if you look it up in a dictionary, they think, all right, you're trying to pull resources or amounts of people to maybe purchasing power. So in this case, as far as energy, what is that all about here in the state of New Jersey?
Right, so it's already happening in the state of New Jersey. You know all those offers you get in the mail, those third-party supply offers, or maybe the township's facilities are purchasing their supply from another company besides PSE&G. Well, this is exactly the same thing, but this is just all the residential accounts in the township going out together as one bid with aggregated purchasing power. So there's the aggregation. And it's a very effective way for the municipality to transition all these customers to choice and increased renewables, which is what the intent of this program is, and the intent of most of these programs. It's also, when it's done by, a municipality, it's got a lot, there's a lot of responsibility around it, and it's a lot different than those offers. But essentially, it's one big purchase at a single moment in time, providing savings, buying more renewables as a percentage than is required by the utilities or the state.
So I guess some communities out, I think Tim, I think you said that Edison Township went out for aggregation, but they didn't necessarily have benchmarks in it. See, we're in a particular nuance, and Tim, you might want to explain the differences of what this referendum and versus a normal aggregation ordinance would be.
Right. So we actually began thinking about aggregation earlier this year, and normally what you would do is you would go out there and you'd hire a company like Good Energy, which we've done, and then they go to PSC&G, who's a provider, and they get the profile of all of our customers, and the profile will basically detail your peak usage, your lower months, your average usage, and then that's the information that you take to the market. So we're in the process of doing that anyway, because if the referendum passes or it doesn't pass, we still need to do that. The next step would be when we get the information from PSC&G is to sit down and analyze it and then determine what parameters that we would want to set when we go out to bid. For instance, when we go out to bid for our public energy that we buy for our buildings, for our fields.
And if I may interrupt right there, Tim, just for the folks out in the viewership area, Piscataway Township was the leader of this going back more than 15 plus years ago, starting the SIM, which is I guess for lack of a better word, it's approximately 100 communities throughout the state, local governments, that was a purchase and aggregation of street lighting, power, regular electricity that goes into the municipal complexes. Go ahead, Tim.
So we set, when we go out to bid, we set a minimum of 25 or 30% for clean energy, which in the current market, we generally get very good pricing on, and it's fairly easy for the market to make. So that's determined really though by your load, and that's what Good Energy will be looking at over the next few weeks when they get the information from PSC&G. The referendum, as stated from our understanding, they've set the parameters in there. So when we go out to bid, we don't really have any ability to change the parameters. We have to take the parameters exactly as the petitioners wrote into it, and we've got less flexibility. And my understanding is that under the current law, we generally wouldn't be, if we were to bid it ourselves, we wouldn't be awarding the bid had the bid come in higher than the people are currently paying. But in this case with the referendum, that may not be the case. We may have to award the bid even if it means higher prices for the customers.
So
Go ahead,
if
Councilman.
I could, Brian, that's my concern as a council person here in town. I want to make sure that we're making good financial decisions for the residents of Piscataway. After speaking to several of our residents, that's their concern. They've opted out themselves, where they went to a different supplier, and what they found after doing so, their energy bill was even higher than before. So I think in talking to Charles and Gary, one of the things that they're going to do for us is look to see if our profile fits a potential savings for the residents of Piscataway. And if we find that that is the case, then what we would do is then consider this as a potential option for the residents. However, if I'm understanding this correctly, the referendum that's currently on the ballot for this year, this coming November, that's not the case.
Yeah.
And that's their concern.
Now, if I can get both Charles and Gary to jump in, when we say energy profile, put it in layperson's terms for the general public, what does that mean?
Okay, so the first data set that we get from the utility, from PSC&G, is just the annual usage per month, like how much each town, the township did in aggregate for all of it.
Okay, so you're gonna, like, say in my household, you're gonna have a combination, say there's 15,000 households in Piscataway Township with 15,000 bills right there. So you're gonna see why my boys are leaving the lights on too much?
No, it
In
won't
charge
be
of-
that.
or
It won't-
just- I'm
no,
just-
it-
I'm
it
just trying to lay-
And it won't be that specific.
Okay.
It'll be 15,000. Is 15,000 the
About
number?
15,000.
Okay, so it'll be the aggregate usage of them on a monthly basis, plus their peak load contribution. I don't want to get too far into this, but
Okay.
like how much the power spikes. And
So I guess as a layperson, when you say peak load, most people think of peak load as during the summertime when you're running your air conditioning, or in the wintertime, I guess your home heating, basically, it's especially if you have electric heater. I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, that historically where the bell-shaped curves would be those
Right.
specific months out of the year.
Right, well, so July is obviously, I mean, and this July was unbelievable, right? How about
Yeah.
today?
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
like 90 today.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that profile will get priced. And so the third-party market, the same suppliers that are actually sending offers, individual offers to people, will price that load profile. They'll test it. And then we'll know what they'd be willing to pay for that compared to what the current PSE&G rates are. And from there, we'll know in aggregate, we won't have anybody's particular data in the first instance, right? That comes much further down the road. We'll know in aggregate, what's the savings opportunity. And then on top of that, what's the savings with various levels of increased renewables? How much does that affect the savings and find a sweet spot?
So
community.
not to ignore Gary, since you do the mass markets for, for good energy. So in theory, because somebody asked me, like if you have, or you're thinking about supply and demand. So if you have higher benchmarks in what you want to bring in supply into town for energy, I mean, higher numbers of renewable. In theory, since there's only X amount of renewables out there, that one would think that potentially the renewable costs potentially could go up higher because
There are supply
there's
and
a
demand
potential
issues, for
because
sure.
if you have more towns wanting to go that route, it's like the old saying, supply and demand. And like when there's a hurricane, everybody wants a generator. So
Right.
portable generators are going to charge more,
The less
scalping basically,
Yep.
for lack of a better word.
elasticity of demand.
Yeah.
Electric,
So, I mean,
That's correct, but it's also a driver to
Yes.
get more renewables on the grid to begin with.
yeah. Now, from what I understand is that one of the things, in the state of New Jersey is, I think, in the top 3 states in the United States for actually renewable, for solar renewable usage. I think Hawaii, then California, then New Jersey, right there. And then we're only starting, I guess, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, the wind field down in South Jersey, which was delayed for at least 10 years.
A decade of slowing it down. It's finally
finally
moving,
come out,
but it
but-
probably won't be online until 2023, 2024.
And then I think there was actually an article in one of the business magazines today about that field that they're expecting that wind farm on the ocean is expected to generate enough renewable power for 500,000 homes in the state of New Jersey. But I guess the question is that some people have been asking is this in order to, I guess, none of us have a crystal ball here about 15 years down the road. The technology may or may not be there yet for 100% renewables. So, is this going to be like one of these things that I guess Montgomery County and outside of Maryland is requiring any new house now has to have solar renewables part of the construction project of any new single-family home.
It's the same in a particular town in California as well.
Yeah.
Lancaster.
Really, yeah.
All new building has, by code, you can't get a permit.
So unless it has some component of solar.
Unless you have some solar.
For residential.
For residential.
Yep.
So the question is that in order to ultimately meet the 100% goal, in theory, which would be a good thing, but to get to that point, there would have to be more solar involved because especially in the state of New Jersey, we don't have geothermal, possibly may have wind, but it's mostly about solar. So you would have to, I'm assuming we would have to have some type of.
I'm going to let Gary take this one.
I mean,
but,
I'm just trying to
but
be a
if-
layperson about this to
Sure.
the general public.
So the highest, like if they're various shades of green, because some shades of green are holier than others, right?
Yeah.
So the absolute benchmark right now is the New Jersey Class 1 REC.
Okay.
And that is not only New Jersey, but look, climate and renewable energy doesn't know borders, right?
Yes.
So, Gary, you want to explain what the Class 1 RECs are?
And you go keep that. We do have
so
a
it's-
caller on the line, but go ahead.
Sure.
Finish that out.
Class 1 RECs are composed of renewable energy that's generated from, for instance, solar, wind, wind power, tidal, fuel cells. There's a whole variety of different technologies that are used to achieve a Class 1 designation. But the Class 1 designation is higher in what's called the Renewable Portfolio Standard, which is a state-mandated percentage of renewable energy that has to be in what we call the generation mix of the energy that's provided to the state. So the class 1 is the highest percentage of the
So
renewable portion.
we're going to hold that thought because we do have a caller on the line. Let me reach over to the phone. I believe this is Calvin. Welcome to I Am Piscataway, Calvin.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I received a flyer in the mail today about voting yes for clean air and clean energy.
Okay.
And I had a couple of questions. I was wondering if you could take the time to answer them.
Well, I could tell you it wasn't from the town, but I like the fact that we're able to breathe clean air. That's a good thing. So anyway, go ahead. What's your question here, Calvin?
Well, first is, if many residents opt out of the program, would that increase the cost to the residents who participated in it?
No. So the selected third-party supplier wears that business risk. It's called migration risk or degradation of accounts. So when they competitively bid on the Township of Piscataway, if half the residents opt out, which is pretty inconceivable, but if they do, that's not going to cause the remaining residents to pick up. They'll still be billed the same amount for the term.
Okay. I keep hearing people saying that the ordinance is going to save each individual home about $100. Is that a guarantee?
I don't, Calvin, I don't know if we can answer that because we don't know what the energy profile of the community is. I do know some of the folks that are in favor of it are pushing that on the street, but anybody saying that specific dollar number, and some of them even said it's been $100 a month. Sign me up if that's the case, but I don't know if that's correct because we don't know until the folks here at Good Energy get the information from PSE&G what our actual profile is. You can't, we or industry can't say definitively what that number in that ballpark may be. Correct if I'm wrong, Eric?
Right. Well, we can use a parallel here. We could talk about New Brunswick, which did this.
Yeah.
Right, and they're 50% renewable, and I think this is all public information. I think they're saving about $100 a year.
Yeah. But I thought they also, in the city of New Brunswick, it was $6.9 because they bought extra to go to the 50% up front.
Correct.
If I remember.
That's right.
Yeah, so it was actually, so in essence, in their case, Calvin, the city of New Brunswick, when they did it, came in 100, but in order to jump it up to 50% renewable, it was a little less savings for the residents.
That's correct.
On that, but it was 50% renewable.
Right. So they added for a total of 50% renewables based on the renewable portfolio standard plus the voluntary additional.
But the city of New Brunswick, I think, from what I understand, had a unique energy profile, because they have a lot of students that are not there during the summer.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of counterintuitive. So
Yeah.
so the students aren't there in some of the highest usage. So the average usage, which makes you cheaper, is flatter than a regular profile.
So in other words, Calvin, there's not a traditional bell-shaped curve or in heavy demand. It's more of a flat line during heavy.
What if the township can't get enough electricity from the existing renewable sources? Are they going to have to build wind the wind farms, or are we going to have to be mandatory solar panels? I mean, how do we make up the difference?
No, the selected supplier will have ample amount of renewable energy to serve the town.
Yeah, if I correct me wrong,
Yeah.
because they're in the power grid, they're buying renewables throughout the entire country.
Right. Well, in this case, they'd be buying it locally because that's what the requirement would be.
I forget what is the grid in here? It's the
PJM.
PJM. Yeah, right.
So
there.
they'd be in PJM Class 1, and there's ample amount of renewables there right now.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be the township's responsibility, or it wouldn't be their liability. It would be the supplier again.
Understood.
So now you're saying the supplier is going to be handling all the financial potential
Yes.
risks.
They'll be on the hook?
Yes.
Okay.
So is that in every contract, or is that if we go out and we utilize you to develop a profile for us? Do you see what I'm saying? So right now, as a resident, if they opt out or opt in, so to speak, they pay an increased cost. So by going with this township aggregation plan that we're talking about doing, the resident doesn't bear the risk if people opt out.
They don't.
Right. So that's the beauty of us doing it this way.
That's right.
Okay. That
They can
that
opt
helps
out
me.
during the, so just to be clear, everybody's in
Yeah.
Right.
unless they opt out, unless you're already on a third-party supply contract.
All right. Which you have to let that.
So 80% is kind of the average in New Jersey. So 80% of all their accounts will be in. They'll have an opt-out period to opt out, and then they can opt out free of charge at any time during the program.
Right.
So they really have three options. They have staying with PSE&G, taking one of those offers they get in the mail or staying with the township's program.
Right, but I think the risk with taking one of those offers in the mail is that their bill could potentially go up.
Oh, this would be a fixed price.
Right, which is good.
Right,
Okay.
a lot of those offers, well, they're different offers.
Right, exactly, and that's kind of what I've heard from some people who have done it, and their rates have gone up. I have
A lot of them, they try to entice you in like a low interest credit card that they're
Or they
offering for a
have,
few months,
introductory
right,
rates, or they're
introductory
tied
rate
to
for a few
airline
months.
miles.
Right.
Okay. tied
So
down.
ours we would at least set for the length of the term, which generally is 18 to 20 months or so. So
Yeah.
if you're sticking with whatever we come out with, it'll be more financially stable than probably going with one of the offers you get in the mail.
Yeah.
There are actually communities in this country that do this just to protect their residents from the third-party supply offers.
Calvin, did you have another question?
2 more, if that's okay.
All right, you're like the show right here. Go
Well,
ahead.
it's concerning. The flyer came in today, and I'm hearing also stuff about how there's Piscataway's got poor air quality and a high rate of asthma.
Well, I could probably address at least one of them. I know the state health department statistics that they publish annually shows, I guess, Middlesex County and Piscataway in general being, below the average for the state of New Jersey. So I don't know what to quantify. I'm not a medical expert, but, I just looking at, if you go on to Department of Health statistics right there, you can see the level, but I don't know if that's a reason why you should be voting yes or no on this referendum. And as far as the air quality, the state of New Jersey as a whole is in what they call, the federal government calls a non-attainment area. And that means that the air quality coming over from Pennsylvania and Ohio, because their power generating plants over there makes the entire state of New Jersey what they call a non-attainment area. And that's actually why transportation, we typically get more transportation dollars into the state, because you have the 3 regions of the state broken up by the MPOs, where they want commuters in mass transit to use that because the overall energy quality. But having grown up here in Piscataway, Chanelle having grown up here in Piscataway, that we don't have large petrochemical factories as we used to, say, 40 plus years ago. I would think that the energy quality is a heck of a lot better than what it was when I was growing up as a kid, just for the same fact you don't have that type of industry in the community anymore. So, if they're using that, if folks are using that as an argument to vote yes on the referendum, that may be possibly defeating the purpose of where they want to go. They should just stick to the actual facts with the aggregation.
So I have a question here. I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this. With the referendum, right? If we go the referendum route, is there still a risk to the residents with their prices increasing versus us waiting to get the profile and then locking in those rates?
We're going to get the profile in the next couple of weeks.
We'll have the profile. That's why we actually started with the council
Right.
to move ahead, because we would need the profile even if the referendum passes, because they'd be looking at the same information that we would look at. I mean, nobody's going to do this for us magically. It's going to be the town doing it. So we need all the information, which is why I'm actually signing the documents tomorrow to get the information from PSC
And that's a good point, Tim, Dacey, because like some people showed up at the council meeting, saying that we were diluting the referendum, which wasn't the case, because even if the referendum passes, this is the process that the Board of Public Utilities set up in order to allow companies such as you, Good Energy, to get that information legally, because some of it's, it's sort of like HIPAA, with the health thing, that you're not allowed to get that information unless the governing body allows a third-party company on behalf of the town to get that information. So it wasn't diluting anything like that. One last call or question you have before?
Something. The person that knocked on my door trying to promote this referendum was telling me that the tractor-trailer traffic on River Road also adds into the poor air quality. I had to remind her that both you and Councilman Khan got the trucks off River Road, so I don't know what claim. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to to back that up. I don't know what they're saying out there. It's just, I'm more curious as to what their main goal is behind this. I don't know.
I don't know. Well, you know what, let me answer that, and then we got the monthly announcements, and gentlemen. Well, thank you for calling on Piscataway. Well, I mean, as far as the gentleman just talked about it, I can't speak to that. I don't know. They probably have a lot of out-of-town volunteers coming in just saying, you know, vote for this initiative, and they may be saying some things that they're not. They don't know the community well enough, because I know some of these groups are from out of Trenton and Washington, D.C. that are promoting this. But, you know, in this case, this is one of the things the gentleman just alluded to, that we did get the tracks off the county road there that's been a source of problems for more than 50 plus years. But with that being said, I can't speak to why they would be bringing that up. There again, if that's the argument making, I think it may hurt their cause in that, but stick to the facts. So before I go to the monthly announcements, I want to get over to Gary. Is there anything like in the general public, where does all this power and energy come? I know there's a conglomerate grid. Just explain that in like a minute or so before we go to the monthly announcements, like the PJM, right? Or is it PMJ?
PJM.
PJM.
It stands for Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland.
Okay.
It's actually composed of 14 different states. The PJM grid was begun in 1927. I think it's considered the most mature of the grids, but the country is made up of different interconnections or different grids. And so energy is traded among those grids, and ultimately it gets to the end user, which is us.
So like in the summertime, just for the general public, when there's a peak demand, if there's a heat wave in the Northeast and there's nothing going on in other parts of the country, some of that electricity is bought by the Pennsylvania, Jersey,
Right.
Maryland grid to, you know.
They are the grid operator, so
Yeah.
they have to manage how energy is being used within the state or states. Where is it needed? Where is it not needed?
Yeah, and it's a very complicated dance.
Extremely complicated.
And that goes on every day. You know, it's just not during the peak season. This is even during the winter, the fall, the spring, like that. It's very fast. You need to read up. A layperson needs to read up on and where we get our electricity from. So.
Yeah, their instruments look like NASA.
Yes, I believe that. Now we're going to go to our monthly announcements, and they're giving me a wave that we should go to the monthly announcements, and then we have a boatload of clips, and then we're going to come back to both to Gary and Charles. So I just want to say the monthly announcements. Just in time for Halloween is the story of Sleepy Hollow. Will be performed over 7 days this month on East Jersey Old Town Village. Tickets are free, but if you need to get to them in advance at the web address you should see on your screen, showtimes and other information can be found on Rethink the Theatrical website. Also, our last mobile shredding of the year is Saturday, October 5th at the Little League Fields parking lot. This lasts from 9 a.m. to either noon or when the truck is full. It's free. Please bring your confidential and sensitive materials. This is for paper only, no trash, no other recycling. Piscataway residents only, and an ID is required. And please, just paper only, because we had an instance where the truck went on fire last time because somebody must have put batteries in there. The Mettler Bodheim House Museum is having their fall craft beer tasting Friday evening, October 11th. You can sample many fine and distinctive craft beers with little bites of souvenir glasses and live music. Tickets are available at the museum website. Also, Hometown Heroes, calling all active servicemen and veterans who want to display your photos of you in uniform in Town Hall in November. Our Cultural Arts Commission Advisory is putting on this Hometown Heroes program. You can submit your framed wired photo on Saturday, November 2nd from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Town Hall. For more information, please call the Commission Chair, Kitty Juntner. Also, a reminder to folks, please don't feed the geese. For example, birds can develop bad dietary issues and diseases, and violators can be fined. So we don't want anybody getting sick out there. And last but not least, storm sewer grates. We need your help to prevent flooding along your property. Please, if there's storm grates through here, especially now leaf season's coming up. Also, please do not dump grass or other debris in the catch basins. This will help stop pollution of our streams and rivers. So that concludes our monthly announcements right there. So if we can go ahead and do a couple of clips. We skipped over a bunch of clips because we got involved in this very long and important conversation here. So this is the Stelton Road paving. For those folks out there, this project actually started in 1998. So this has been almost 21 years, and we're expecting by November the project to finally be finished, believe it or not. It's almost like an engineer's career out there. Very complicated widening project out there between the county, Edison Township, and Piscataway Township. So I want to thank the county Board of Holds and Freeholders. And let's go to another one. We have the Bakeland Avenue bridge repair. This has been under construction for about 8 months right now. This is off Possumtown Road. That's Cedar Avenue in the back there that you can see. So this culvert bridge should be opened up by the end of the month. I'm sure a lot of people and the businesses in the back and the new logistics center are going to be happy about that. So that's running in tandem on that. So that's some shots. They're putting up the guide railing this week. So we're going to go to another clip, which is Water Street. So let's go to the Water Street clip. That's another one that it's going to be finishing up. They actually just started, Councilwoman, just this week. So they're expecting to have this finished hopefully by first or second week of December before the asphalt plants close on that. So as you can see, all the new Belgian block out there. So there's a lot of road construction going on in Piscataway Township between both the county and the municipal governments out there. And then, so this is the last street on this side of Stelton Road in the North Stelton region to be done out there. So I do know, so we're gonna go back and talk a little bit, and then we have some other, I'm gonna let them figure out which ones we're gonna go to with clips, because we're gonna have to cut some out and save them for next time. So Charles, so basically, if I'm a person right now that has solar panels on my house, how does this affect me?
Okay, that's a question for Gary.
Okay, okay. All right, that's all right. That's why we have two of you here.
Thank
Go
you
ahead,
so
Gary.
much.
Take it away.
So customers with solar or photovoltaic systems on their rooftops are most likely cashing in their excess generation into something called net metering credits.
Okay.
And a net metering credit is something that you, again, it's an overage of generation from your own facility, from your own home. You sell it back to the utility, and the utility, you're able to bank it, and then you use those net metering credits probably during the winter when you can basically offset your usage during the winter to less than or to zero, possibly. We have found that including net metering customers in the aggregation programs in New Jersey is not ideal. In other states, it seems to work much better, but within New Jersey, it does not seem to be a very effective
I
way.
don't understand. You're saying in some states it works better, it flows better.
The rules are
the
just
rules.
different between the utility and the state
Okay.
and how it
Is that
impacts
like
the
regulated
customers.
because of the Board of Public Utilities?
Yeah,
or
I would
part
think
of it?
so.
Yeah.
So those people with solars, they wouldn't automatically be opted in at all?
Correct. We
Right.
would scrub them from
Right.
the enrollment list.
Because you would know through the profile that
Correct.
this household has
It doesn't preclude them from opting in
Yeah.
the future if they want to.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
That's an interesting statistic. One
Right.
would think, why would you be in? Because you already have solar on your roof
Right.
and you're already doing the net metering. How is it like for somebody? I'm trying to think like, all the questions that I've been getting asked about this because just so you know that when the ballot comes out, the actual verbiage is about this big. And the print, you got to bring a big magnifying glass in to read this ballot initiative, or some very big bifocals or something, because it's going to be that small because of how crowded it's going to be on the ballot. So,
Right.
but that's why I'm strongly suggesting people read the sample ballot before they go in there, because trying to read it actually in the voting booth, forget it. Between the light and everything like that. We're going to come back to that. They want us to go to video number 4. Let's go to video number 4. We had an awful lot of stuff. The Little League Banquet. How about that? So a lot of there's our Council President Frank Earn, who's president of the Little League Association. Obviously, Kapil Shaw was there in attendance. And Councilman Steve Kahn, who's coached in the past, but I don't think coached this year. And our DARE officer, Calvin Laughlin, was there, and these are all the Little League coaches this year, and also these are the trophy winners of all the the all-star teams that were out there. So, boy, I got to tell you, trying to get these kids to listen with the speeches with all the pizza there, forget about it. I think pizza takes care of everything. Very noisy senior center there where we're giving out the trophies, though. But they all love it. They have a beautiful complex that we have. We have a great Little League complex there, Gary, in Charles, right there. So if you ever get a chance to go up and see it, it's probably one of the better ones in the state of New Jersey. These are all the Williamsport folks. So I want to thank all the coaches and the parents out there who helped make a successful Little League season. So let's get back to it. Is there anything we're missing here that you want to get out there?
Well, I think, some of the same just basic deregulation questions, they kind of come up again. Like, if the township does this, will our service be treated differently by the utility? Like, if the power goes out?
Okay.
If the power goes out, it goes out for everybody.
Ultimately, PSC&G has the responsibility
Right.
to restore the if the line goes down
That's
or
right.
whatever. That's not going to change.
No, you're treated indifferently.
Yeah.
So
Because you actually pay as part of the tariffs, you pay rate for that.
you're still going to pay PSC&G for your local charges.
Okay. All right. We're going to get back to that in a second. We do have another clip right there. This is the Patriots Day at the Elks. Thank you and good evening. First of all, I want to thank the Elks for hosting this event today, as well as the participation from the River Road Fire Company members and obviously Troop 67. I want to acknowledge some of the folks that are here, officials. We have Councilwoman at Large Chanelle McCullum. We have Councilwoman Gabrielle Cahill, Councilman Kapil Shaw. We have Council President Frank Earn, and we have our County Sheriff Millie Scott in the back. We have Jim Ballard, our councilman from the 2nd Ward, and we have our Chief of Police Mike McLaughlin and Captain Butch Morrison, and we also have one of our other police officers here, Calvin Laughlin from the department. And I want to thank everybody for coming out here with this remembrance 18 years after the horrific event. In today's newspaper, there was a very good article about what happened that day, given the fact that the tragedy that involved our country. But through this tragedy, there was friendships born. So I know everybody knows when the airspace was closed, a lot of those planes were diverted to, if they were coming over from Europe, they was diverted to Newfoundland, Gander, Newfoundland. And how a lot of those people ended up in Gander, Newfoundland, sheltered a lot of Americans over there until the airspace could get back open. And friendships that were born from a tragedy that hit our country has still endured because of that. So despite the tragedy and the horrific event that happened, maybe something good did come out of it, that hopefully people understand each other a little bit better on what's going on. It's never going to substitute for the loss of life that many folks suffered in this country, especially in the tri-state region. But if we get to know a little of each other, maybe something like this will never happen again, and that people would not suffer from that. Okay, I want to thank the Piscataway Elks for sponsoring the 9/11 Remembrance this year, and thank you very much for that. We're going to go to the ARC ribbon cutting, so let's go to the videotape on that. This is a great day for ARC of Middlesex County. If you look at the mission statement here of ARC, it says the ARC of Middlesex County provides people with developmental and other disabilities and their families with supports and services which encourage personal growth and quality of life through empowerment and choice. In this day and age, that's a dead-on mission. It really is. And I can't thank you all enough for making Piscataway your new home here for your workshop. Piscataway's been very fortunate enough to be named as one of the top 100 towns in the United States. And a lot of that has to do about the quality of life within our community. For no matter whether your race, creed, or color, or your ability, here in Piscataway, we try to take care of people here. This is a beautiful facility right here. Everything's bright, open air. It's just like almost you're out in the country out here. And I hope that all the clientele here of ARC really enjoy coming to Piscataway. To me, I was born and raised in this community. It's meant a lot to me, and I hope it means a lot to you, because I know you want to be very productive in your life, and we care. We want to make sure you are also. So, Francis, good luck, and to your professional staff here, good luck, and you always have a friend down at Town Hall. I want to thank the folks from Middlesex County ARC for choosing Piscataway as their newest workshop area. And I know that makes a lot of parents very happy here in Piscataway. So with that, we have one little short clip we got to get in. So let's go to the cue it up. It's a 100th birthday party of Barbara Wadsworth, who's a longtime resident off of Orchard Street off of Hose Lane West, who turned 100 years old, and she's been volunteering over at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital for about 19 years over there. So and she's a big Rutgers women's basketball fan. So the team signed the jersey there for her having the numbers 100. So I want to thank Barbara for all the help of your fellow citizens over there, and good luck again. So really funny what they did is they got all Wrigley gum, because Wrigley was founded in 1919. Okay. So they put everything out there that was made in 1919 out there for her in atrium. It was really good. There were a lot of folks at the hospital were there. So we got a couple, off camera, we were talking about a couple things. So Chanelle, you had a question, and then we had something about the benchmarks and the ordinances. So we'll start with your question first.
Okay. So Gary, question for you.
Yes.
Can you define 100% renewable energy for the residents so that's clear?
Sure. Well, 100% renewable energy is energy that is being generated from renewable sources. So there are many technologies involved in renewable energy. The most prominent are solar, wind. Then you have, the mayor had mentioned earlier, that geothermal is not that prevalent in New Jersey, but there's fuel cells, there's biomass, which we tend to actually shy away from in our programs because those are not what we call fuel-free renewable energies. There's an actual fuel, a combustion that's happening with waste. I think those are probably the main ones, but there's always new technologies coming. There's tidal energy, which is very exciting. I think we're all looking forward to seeing
Especially
the
up in
promises
Maine,
of that.
right? Up in tidal, I mean, the ocean tidal, right?
The ocean
New
tidal, and then even in New York, there was some work with actual mechanics and how to kind of
East River a few years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They did
And
some
what's your
testing.
prediction for being able to get to that? Like, how long do you think it would take? for it?
100%?
Yes.
Well,
If your expertise, if you had a crystal ball.
wow, that is, no one's ever asked me that question. I would say, let's be optimistic and say 2050, but maybe it'd be more like 2060.
20.
Well,
Who knows
you know,
the way,
Governor Murphy's
we're talking nationwide.
energy
Right.
program, he was
Or
talking
globally.
New Jersey 100% by 2050. And I think some of the folks are skewing them over that. They were expecting 2035 as some of the advocates here that had the referendum on there. But, you have to look at the big picture there, though.
Right. And they do have opposition.
Yeah.
They've been talking about the wind power off of New Jersey for at least a decade. Up in Vineyard Sound, they've been talking about it for 20 years. And every time they take a step forward, somebody seems to get in the way. The president just blocked the issuance of a permit unilaterally with no explanation. So it does take some political forces. As a reminder, people are complaining, but they forget that the first thing Governor Christie did was to pull out of the Northeast governors that were fighting for cleaner energy in the Northeast, the consortium. And President Obama passed some very stringent rules for power plants out in the Midwest that will have an effect on reducing the pollution in New Jersey, and President Trump killed those rules. So
Which is
there's a lot of political party.
Wasn't it like the power industry now? I read an article that are actually against changing those standards now, because now they've already transitioned out or in the process. Charles, I mean, you know probably a little bit more about it than I do, but the industry itself is getting there. I mean, they're just looking at the market.
Right, it's like the automobile industry.
Well, what we're talking about is the Clean Power Act.
Yeah.
Clean Power Act, too.
And it's applied in different percentages in different states, and there's so much politics. I mean, this would be a very large conversation. It would take a long time.
It's not going to get done in 10 minutes, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I have another question. I don't know if this is for Gary or for Charles. So that 100%, that means all of us with electric cars. Does that mean all of us with solar panels? Like, what does that look like?
Well, if you're talking about the power that's actually coming to us, that means all the power that's being generated from those renewable facilities. But If you're driving a car that's still a combustion engine, that's not 100%.
Right. Right.
Or I should say, you still have carbon emissions.
Right.
But there's a lot of talk about electric cars and how are we powering the electric cars, because we still have coal and other types of fuel that are
Right,
being
right.
used. But the more and more electric cars that are being produced, the stronger the demand. Then we have stronger renewable goals, and that renewable energy will ultimately fuel the electric cars. And it's kind of a nice
theory,
symbiosis that's
I
happening.
do have a question, but let's put up that graphic we have about the ordinance, about the benchmarks. And I know Charles and Gary are quick to say that's not their benchmarks, it's benchmarks that's in the ordinance. So let's put up the graphics here. So this is, for those folks out in the audience, so this is what basically, if you read the fine print of the ordinance, this is what the benchmarks call for in the ordinance. So basically all the electricity, renewable sources for electricity would be 100% by 2035. That would come in, that the homeowners, in theory, in Piscataway would be using.
So based upon what Gary just said, right, of 2050, 2060, what happens, we get to 2035 and we're not at 100%. So it doesn't sound like we can even get there.
Well, I'm assuming, Gary, if the technology's not there, the technology's not there.
Correct. But the demand has to be there too. So if
Yeah.
the demand is there,
Yeah.
entrepreneurs will fill it.
And I think that's why there's folks going around trying to do these referendum petitions, because they want to try to create the demand.
Demand?
But, with that being said, there was a very good article just this past week that one of the big problems that we're having in New Jersey, there's not enough energy storage capacity. And that the state BPU needs to take a look at that, because even if you have additional solar and all these other energy generation renewable, there's not the capacity to store it. And that's the next big thing that they need to get the private sector in, to start thinking about storage capacity for all this potential renewable to make it more cost effective.
That race is on, right?
Yeah.
In West Caldwell, they've got a storage facility right now, and there are a lot of storage companies and development right now, and somebody's going to win this race.
Yeah.
Someone's going to have the storage that all the utilities need to buy, that all the end users need to buy.
So when
Dispatchable storage.
yes, as a layperson, I guess, could you maybe break it down and
Right.
what concept? It doesn't mean like a bin you would throw your kids' toys in. I mean, when you say storage,
Right.
to a layperson, what constitutes storage?
So just imagine a big battery that, so when the sun's shining, you're sending electrons in there, and then it's holding them, more efficiently than it's holding them now in this market, and then you're able to dispatch them when there is no wind, there is no sun. So that's really coming, and being able to call on that asset at times when there isn't sunshine, when there isn't wind, it's definitely coming.
So basically, in essence, until that end, correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, gets perfected, that is pretty much the holy grail of renewable.
Exactly.
Because
Solar to storage.
if you don't have the storage, you're not going to be able to be true 100% renewable, because you need to store it someplace.
Sure.
Right.
Right?
Right, and then there is even talk about all of our vehicles, and who knows, maybe, there are people that don't even want to own cars anymore or houses, but that's a whole other discussion.
And
but-
that's that was like one of the big things now that the electric cars with some of the tax, and the other thing, public policy wise, with the new federal tax law that was put in late 2017, there weren't that many tax credits in for renewable energy. So at the federal level, as Tim knows, tax policy dictates investment.
Sure.
I mean, the two of you are involved in this all the time. So I mean, unless there's a will that say, hey, we're going to give tax, and that's based on how like Tesla started through tax credits and some other startup companies, because the way back in I guess the 2008-2009 stimulus package, there was language in there to allow startup companies to experiment with renewable energy.
Right. And even if you bought the electric vehicle, you have tax credits, which are diminishing each year now.
Each year, I think they run out in
They're
two
running
or
out
3
soon,
years.
right?
And then I know that BPU, I don't think is doing as much as they were with credits and,
So again, that's federal policy.
yeah.
That we can do what we can do locally, but really the demand, this is all guided by the federal government and the state government. But the federal government right now is in hostile hands towards the environment.
Well, for renewable,
Right, towards the
renewables.
environment. And
Yeah.
we need to, that's when the change really has to happen.
So when, like, the terminology to the BPU, SREC credits, can you explain that for the general public?
Okay, so should we do renewable energy certificates?
Yes, you
Yeah,
might as well do it. We're
yeah,
talking about
so-
renewable, so.
Okay, so one of the ways you get to these percentages, you're not actually physically hooking up, a wind farm to people's houses. You,
That'd be a zoning violation
Yeah.
of Piscataway.
you as the township are making a decision to purchase renewable energy certificates, which there's and Gary, of course, is the subject expert in this, but you're actually, you get to make a claim that you are putting more green electrons on the grid, right? So when they're on the grid, they don't know if they're brown or green.
In theory. I
But
mean,
you
general-
are, no, but you are actually,
Okay.
and you're putting them on within a region. That's why you have, like New Jersey Class 1 regs, that has to be within PJM in New Jersey, and that's what you're buying. So if you're buying more of that, you're creating additionality. So more renewable farm to table or even grid size gets built because you're buying it. So that's the virtuous, cycle here that you're looking to do when you're getting more renewable here. You're not actually physically, in many cases, doing anything directly to someone. You're buying basically a certificate that makes a claim. It gets retired, so doesn't get counted
Okay.
twice. Gary, do you want to add to that, or have I covered that? Or
You've covered it, yeah.
okay.
Now,
It's can be conceptually something that's hard for people to grasp, but you're basically buying a certificate which represents energy that was generated from a renewable facility.
okay, gotcha.
And in purchasing that, you are hopefully offsetting carbon-generated energy
In other words,
taken off the grid.
somebody using,
Right. You use the green energy,
Yeah.
and now the carbon energy
somebody
is
who
carbon
used-
generated.
still has oil heat,
Right.
right?
But that molecule of green energy or any type of energy cannot be differentiated within the grid. And so that's why we use these certificates, because that's how green energy is basically monetized. And this is an accepted form of using renewable energy and how it's traded all over the world.
And that's why I keep saying there's probably maybe 36 people in the entire state of New Jersey that understand this well. Fortunately, we have 2 people on the show who do. But, with that being said, we only have like about 4 minutes left. So what would you say to, an average homeowner about aggregation in general? I know that when Edison Township did their aggregation, they did it differently, Tim. I guess PSC&G came in as the low provider or whatever, when they did an aggregation in Edison Township next door.
Yeah, I think the rates came in above the PSC&G tariff
Above-
rates. That's what it was.
So if the rates were to come in above whatever PSC&G pays, you have to take the PSC&G
Right.
rates. But that's not the case with this ordinance. I guess I'm trying to muddy up the waters here, unfortunately.
So wait a minute, so that's not the case, but with this ordinance, then what happens? You have to go with the higher rate.
Well, no, you have to go whatever the bid comes in.
Right,
Whatever the bid comes in, whatever.
May I
Sure,
add
sure,
something?
go ahead, Gary.
So by New Jersey law, if you're just taking the straight power product, it must be at the same rate or lower than the prevailing utility rate. The only way it can go higher, the only way a community can execute a contract with a third-party supplier and have it a higher rate is if it has a higher percentage of renewable energy in the product.
Got it.
It's
So that's
actually
good to know.
it's allowed by law.
Okay, okay. That's good to know.
So that's why you would take the profile in if you're looking at it as a financial situation, you would look at the profile, price it, and see what the market would bear when you go out to bid, which is what we would normally do.
Now, is there-
With the case of the ordinance, you lose that ability to do that. That's the difference.
Okay, so what is the ideal time? I know we're preparing, getting all the information. What is the ideal time to go out to bid on something like this?
You know, energy's traded every month.
It's a volatile commodity.
You wouldn't believe that sometimes February is the cheapest month, right?
Yeah.
It really depends on what all those other months added up together, weighted average, what's going on politically, you know, all sorts of factors. So, but you have to, it takes 6 months just to get your program to a place by law that you can even go to bid, so that you're going through those steps now. In case the referendum passes, then we still have more steps to do before going out to bid. So at that point, we'll look at various start dates and find out what, you know, works for the
So
township.
probably regardless, we would be looking to bid in the spring, and that's when you have to really watch it, because all of a sudden, if you have a predicted cold spell coming in, you would want to bid then.
Hold on, we do have a little 30-second clip. I don't know if we have time to do that on the, I believe, the Egyptian festival. I heard a yes. Go ahead. This is the Egyptian festival. This is the second or third year that the Coptic Church has had the Egyptian festival. Councilwoman, they actually got me to eat some homemade Egyptian stuffed sausage with some type of, oh, that is pure sugar cane.
Oh, wow.
They
Okay.
actually stripped, you know, so if you ever want to, just don't drink that before you have to go get a blood test done for your annual cholesterol there. So, but that's kind of funny. So that's the two pastors of the Egyptian church. So I had to get that in there. So that now I know. So now I should have my wife in the morning skidding sugar cane thing to make pure sugar cane for me. So, all right. Well, I really appreciate the two of you coming on the show, trying to explain in layperson's terms to something that is a very complicated issue out there, not just here in New Jersey, but nationally. A lot of talked about, because I know governmentally Piscataway Township has done a lot of renewable for our government facilities over time, but you know, we tend to have a little bit, we tend to go out for grants to be able to do that, you know, instead of bonding to do things like that, and not like the general public where they go and have a third-party provider put like a solar panel on a roof, and you know they get a cut and whatever, and get a little lower electricity rates out there. So do you have like 20 seconds worth of wisdom to anybody before we close out the show?
Look, aggregation's not, it's not pioneer. Many communities have done it. Most of them have not done it as a renewable default program. But more recently, there are about a dozen that have, most notably your neighbor in New Brunswick. And it's really a wave that's everywhere in this country right now where this law allows for aggregation.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank that. We're going to leave that show. I want to remind the viewers, Money Magazine named us one of the top 100 towns in the United States. It's something for us to be very proud of here in Piscataway Township, and we're always on the cutting edge, or at least we try to be. So with that, we will see you in November, and don't forget Halloween out there and all the great things that are going to happen in the balance of October. And don't forget Election Day, the ballot initiative referendum.